Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Dodge brand and some rumors that are going around that we recently picked up on. And it seems like Dodge might be working on another new vehicle for its lineup. Now, if you look at the Dodge lineup right now, because we're on Dodge.com, it basically consists of three vehicles. So you have the E-segment Dodge Durango, which is, basically a three-row SUV. You have the new Dodge Charger, which is an E-segment, basically a coupe right now, but it'll be a four-door by the end of the month because they're going to introduce the new four-door model. And then you have the C-segment crossover Dodge Hornet, which has been kind of mediocre in its sales success. So Dodge really needs to focus on expanding their lineup. And we've heard things about, a $30,000 sports car and all this other stuff. But one of the vehicles that we've been hearing a lot about in our, rumor pool and with our sources and stuff is that the design studio is actually working on a D-segment SUV. Now, it makes sense because right now, you look at the Jeep brand, Jeep basically has launched three new D-segment vehicles. Well, they haven't really launched all of them yet. We have the Wagoneer S, which is already available in dealerships. That's a D-segment vehicle. We're going to have the new Recon, which is the adventure off-road vehicle. That's going to be a D-segment vehicle. And then we're getting the new Cherokee, which is going to be for North America only, but it's going to be a hybrid. So that's going to be a D-segment vehicle too. Each kind of has their own personality, enough to kind of separate them, but Jeep is going full in on the D-segment after not having a D-segment vehicle since February of 2023. Chrysler, on the other hand, Chrysler's supposed to be having a new crossover coming. It's been delayed a little bit because they're changing the powertrain strategy from what we've heard. But that's codenamed C6X. Now, a lot of people have asked me, hey, is C6X its name? It's not. It's just the platform code, C6X. Originally, it was CA when it was the Chrysler Airflow, but apparently it's getting redesigned. It's going to have different looks than the Airflow, but internally it's called C6X. But that is supposed to be a D-segment SUV. So it makes sense that the D-segment SUV category is the most, I would say, competitive in the United States for all the manufacturers. Almost everybody has a D-segment SUV. However, Dodge does not. Dodge did have a D-segment SUV with the Journey. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But according to the rumor pool, what we've been hearing is that Dodge is actually working or planning a new crossover right between the Hornet and the Durango. So again, the Durango is an E-segment vehicle, Hornet's a C-segment vehicle, so this would be a D-segment vehicle. Now, we don't know a lot about this vehicle because the rumors have just popped up, but it makes sense. Again, Dodge wants to be competitive. The thing is, if you look back at its past, it had D-segment vehicles before. This is a rendering that we did based on the Cherokee using AI. And, it's very basic, but nonetheless, it kind of gives you an idea of what kind of vehicle Dodge might be going for. So this would be like possibly a 5-passenger, maybe a 7-passenger, like with a third row vehicle. I would say I would basically want, if it was me, again, we don't know a whole lot about this vehicle, it would be probably like a shrunk down Durango kind of, even if it had 3 rows, that would be awesome. But ultimately, it'd probably be like 5 rows. In my opinion, I think Dodge would probably do 5 rows. The thing is we look at the history of the D-segment with Dodge. Dodge had a very successful D-segment vehicle with the Journey. Now, a lot of people say, hey, the Journey sucked, blah, 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 blah. It was crap. It might have been crap, but a lot of people loved the first-generation Journey. This isn't to be confused with the Chinese one that's being built for Mexico only right now. But this was built in Toluca, Mexico. When it launched in 2008, it was not a very good-looking vehicle. It had a weak powertrain with a 3.5-liter V6. The interior was absolute crap. It was very plasticky. However, when Sergio Marchionne invested more money into the interiors of the vehicle, and in 2011 when they updated it, it actually became a pretty nice vehicle. And overall sales went through kind of doubled easily overnight. It got a Pentastar V6. It had a Tiger Shark 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, which was a dog. I never liked that engine in the Journey. But nonetheless, it was a cheap, affordable vehicle that started out about $24,000. And you can get almost a fully loaded GT model at the end of its lifespan in 2020. Actually, sorry, 2019, because in 2020 they were only front-wheel drive. In 2019, you can get a GT model for about $31,000 fully loaded. So it was very popular because it was affordable. Yeah, it was outdated. It didn't have the best interior. Quality was kind of, I would say like a 7 out of 10. It wasn't the best quality, but a lot of people who own these vehicles absolutely loved them. They had 3 rows of seating, so basically you could fit 6 passengers in there. The base models had basically a bench in the middle and, bucket seats up front, so you could have 5 passengers. But nonetheless, this vehicle was very important to Dodge. Very important. Yeah, it didn't fit the muscle car kind of attitude, but as a people mover, it was very successful to the point where they were going to axe it in 2015, and they kept it going to 2020 because it was still selling well. Matter of fact, 2016 was its best year ever for sales, and they were going to axe it in 2015, which was kind of funny. If you look at what this vehicle offered, yeah, Pentastar V6, 200 and let's say 82 horsepower. I think it was 282 or 283. Wasn't a muscle car by any means, but the people mover segment with this and the Grand Caravan actually made up over 50% of Dodge's sales from 2015 to 2019. So they need mainstream vehicles again. It's simple. Not everybody needs a performance car, but people like vehicles with attitude. This was just an affordable vehicle. Now, realistically with the Hornet, it's going to be different to see how the Hornet deals with the tariffs because it's built in Italy. I don't know how much the increase is going to be. Roughly, they said there was a conference call last week, and they said about 3.25% an increase in imported vehicles would basically cover the tariffs. So who knows? We don't know we don't have an official price, like a price guide for the tariffs yet. But it'll be very interesting to see how the Hornet deals with it. But nonetheless, the Hornet starts at $30,000. They need to kind of cheapen that vehicle up more. They just pushed the GT back to $29,995. However, you get standard all-wheel drive. You get a 2-liter turbo engine. If they were smart, they would cheapen that vehicle up even more, make it front-wheel drive standard, maybe give it the 200 horsepower version of the GME T4, like the Compass, and bring it down to like $23,000, and it would be a huge hit. So the Hornet is overpriced, like still, but a D-segment SUV would realistically probably fit within, I wouldn't say it would be in the 20s by any means, but it would be in the 30s. We don't know if it's going to be a 5-passenger. We don't know really anything about this vehicle other than that they're working on one. So I don't want you to think like, hey, you know all the details. We don't. It's just simple. We don't know all the details. We just know that they're working on a D-segment vehicle. Now, the Journey wasn't the only D-segment vehicle that Dodge had in recent years. If we go back, we can actually see that the Nitro was the other D-segment vehicle. That went from 2007 to 2011. And the funny thing about the Nitro was it was never a huge success. Yeah, it was kind of rugged when it launched in 2007. It was basically, a rebadged Jeep Liberty. However, they gave it a 4-liter V6 engine to give it a little more power. So the standard 3.7-liter V6 was just a dog. I never really liked that engine. It had 210 horsepower. Then they gave it a 260 horsepower 4-liter V6 out of the Pacifica. And while that was never a huge performance vehicle, it was a lot better than the 3.7. However, overall sales weren't that great. If you look at the actual peak sales of the Nitro, that was the year it launched in 2007, and it only sold 74,825 units. Now, during its short lifespan, it ended up turning into this kind of like in-your-face attitude kind of vehicle. In 2010, they kind of gave it all body color stuff. We used to be able to get the gray plastic fenders and whatnot. They made it all body colored, and then all the models had 20-inch wheels on them, every one. They gave it names like Heat, and there was a couple other ones. But anyways, they gave it kind of like an attitude presence, and they were hoping it would boost sales, but it just never did. That's why I say the Journey was a success, because if you look at the Journey, again, they were going to cancel the Journey in 2015. They extended it, and in 2016, it had its best year. So it had 106,233 units that year sold in the U.S. So it was a huge hit. Even after they thought it was wore out and everything, still was selling well. However, what could underpin this vehicle? Well, there could be 2 platforms actually. Now, most of the vehicles that we've seen in the D segment here in the U.S., the the Chrysler C6X and the Wagoneer S, Nitro, or not Nitro, I'm sorry, the Recon and the Cherokee will all be based on the STLA Large platform. Technically, if Dodge wanted to do something different, they could go with the STLA Medium platform. The STLA Medium platform could be stretched a little bit, but guaranteed it probably won't be a 3-row vehicle. However, if they wanted to do a 3-row vehicle, they could do a STLA Large platform, but I think this time it would probably stay away from the 3-row thing because they want the Durango to kind of live on, because that vehicle has been extended until at least 2028. Now we're hearing that they had recently approved another extension to it for 2029. So the WD Durango, the Gen 3 Durango that we have now, has been extended to probably 2029. Yeah, it's crazy. That vehicle's been around forever. It launched in 2011. So yeah, it's nuts. However, if they launched this vehicle, realistically, it would probably be a STLA Large vehicle, just like the Wagoneer S. It probably would be a 5-passenger vehicle like the Wagoneer S. I ultimately wrote an article before saying I didn't understand why they built the Wagoneer S when they could have had that as a Dodge. The Wagoneer S would be the perfect Dodge vehicle. The overall footprint of that vehicle is about the same size as the first generation Dodge Durango, one of my favorite vehicles of all time. I've actually owned 2 of them. Absolutely love those vehicles. Perfect size vehicle. All those Durangos had 3 rows, but they worked really good. They were kind of small, like they weren't as wide as the Wagoneer S, but overall length and stuff was pretty close to the Wagoneer S. Again, garageable. The Wagoneer has 600 horsepower. I mean, that's perfect for Dodge. You don't need to have much more than that. All-wheel drive, that you could do electric. You could do internal combustion. That's the best thing. You can do a 3-liter inline 6 with 550 horsepower. So all the parameters kind of fit around the Wagoneer S, I think, that Dodge could do. However, again, this is just speculation because, again, we don't know anything. We just know that they're working on something that kind of fit in that lineup. So Dodge is, obviously crossovers are here to stay. People love crossovers. Muscle cars, yeah, they're kind of like a specialty kind of thing. And hopefully we do see, a sports car. I would love to see a sports car, something cheap. I would love to see them build a Challenger again, maybe like a mid-size Mustang kind of fighter. But SUVs is where the money's at. And unfortunately, with the Hornet being built in Italy, it's never been that successful. And hopefully the next generation Hornet will actually change that. Hopefully they build it here and whatnot. But a D-segment, again, is the most competitive vehicle in the market right now. D-segment SUV. So it makes sense. I mean, Dodge has to get away from this whole, muscle car only kind of thing. They have to build something mainstream, some kind of people mover that has some kind of attitude to it to produce money to actually build halo cars again. It's just how it's got to be. So you can go on here. Again, these are just renderings of a Cherokee that we did on AI with just Dodge kind of like looks. Don't take it as this is the vehicle. It's not. We don't know much about it. We just know that they're creating a D-segment vehicle. So let me ask you to leave your comments below of what you guys think of what should Dodge do for a D-segment vehicle. Should it be all about performance? Should it be more mainstream that everybody can kind of afford it? What should they do? Leave your comments below. I'm curious to see what you guys say, and I'll see you in the next video.